don't need a £1 million commercial studio to make a record that critics call a classic. In 2019, I made my spare bedroom my own DIY studio. I had an inexpensive synthesizer, a MIDI keyboard, my guitars, a computer and some strong song ideas. The result was my album Resistor. When it was released, Louder Than War called it a classic album. Hello everyone, I'm Paul Iwan and I'm a singer-songwriter and producer from Liverpool. Today we're pulling back the curtain on how Resistor was built from the ground up in a completely independent DIY environment. We're going to talk about streamlined workflow, the cheap equipment, the sonic choices, and how to get massive commercial sounding mixes out of a modest home studio setup. So if you're trying to make your own record in a small DIY studio space, grab a drink, hit subscribe, and let's have a chat about DIY production. To record something to be released, you obviously need a good song, a song that you think is worth releasing. We aren't going to discuss songwriting or arranging today, that may be a video for the future. This is purely a video about simple home studio solutions without breaking the bank. This is my current home studio setup, but it didn't look like this in 2019. This is what it looked like. When I first started recording in here, I obviously didn't have a perfectly treated acoustic room designed by physicists. It's parallel walls, lots of sound reflections. When I started Resistor, I knew I couldn't compete with the expensive polished rooms of, say, Abbey Road. So I decided to do the exact opposite and embrace the imperfections. Resistor is an album full of angst and raw emotions, so a perfect recording studio just wouldn't be right. My first major tip for DIY producers is solve the acoustic problem by doing it in the box. There are so many software companies out there emulating real spaces and equipment, and some of it is really reasonably priced. So instead of trying to record a massive acoustic drum kit in a tiny spare room or a rehearsal space with expensive gear and microphones that I couldn't afford, what we decided to do was use a digital drum kit plugged straight into the laptop. We would go through the song one week in our rehearsal room at Space Project in Bootle and work up the drum part. Then the next week Steve would bring in his electronic drum kit and we laid down the song to a click, capturing Steve's performance as MIDI data. I'd then take that away and build the track up here in my home studio. This allowed me to completely bypass the need for a perfect acoustic room while still capturing the incredible living, breathing human performance of Steve Burkett. We then put his performance through EZdrummer by Toontrack. I think it was EZdrummer 2 at the time. By capturing Steve's actual velocity and human swing digitally, I got world-class drum dynamics without a single room reflection ruining the track. I think it's never been a better time for home producers, as you can achieve great results without spending thousands of pounds. By the way, I'm not sponsored by any of the software or hardware products I talk about, I'm just talking from my own point of view of what I use or used. The core identity of Resistor is the tension between clinical electronic synth landscapes and raw melodic alt-rock energy. In a DIY setting, getting these elements to sit together can be difficult because they fight for the exact same space. People often assume that the heavy low end of the record is all synth bass, but it's actually an Epiphone Alan Woody Rumblekat electric bass guitar. I bought this in 2015 from Dawson's in Liverpool. It cost me less than 300 quid. It's a short scale, semi-hollow bass that has this beautiful, warm, punchy, low mid growl. I don't have space for massive amps or neighbours who would have put up with me playing massive amps, so I would put this through Amplitube by Arcade Multimedia, usually a distorted Ampeg type sound, and just get fantastic tones. Here is the exact framework I used on the chorus of my song Progress to make everything fit together cleanly. First, the Novation Mini Nova synth arpeggio handled the clockwork. I added a syncopated electronic piano to add interest to the rhythm. This is a CP80 from Addictive Keys that came free with the interface. I kept the synth sequences tight, aggressively EQ'd to leave a perfect pocket for the low end. Second, the bass and the guitars handled the human chaos. Here's the bass. My good friend Jim Duncan from the Brighton-based band The White Star Liners added this relentless driving guitar part. I added some delays to give it a tumbling, cascading feel. Because the synths were so straight, the natural groove of Steve's drum performance, the deep thump of the Rumblekat and the twang and grit of the guitars made it human and tactile. Then add the vocals, of course, riding over the top. It provided a perfect emotional contrast for the song. If your home studio tracks sound flat, try this. Keep your synth sequences perfectly electronic, but let your live instruments breathe, giving that human energy. People always ask me what expensive preamp, high-end condenser microphone or elite DAW software I used on Resistor. The honest truth, I used budget gear to record. I recorded the entire album in Cubase. I didn't buy it separately. It was the free version that came with the Focusrite Scarlett 6i6 interface. You don't need to spend hundreds on software to get professional results. Cubase comes with tons of effects too, so you can get some great sounds straight out the box. And the vocals? Every single vocal track on Resistor was recorded using a standard Shure SM58, a £90 live vocal mic. I'd read somewhere that Sex on Fire by the Kings of Leon was recorded on a SM57, not like a 20 grand Neumann valve mic. Obviously in this tiny room I don't have a vocal booth. So I bought a second-hand soundproof curtain from eBay for 50 quid and using it to deaden the corner of the room. To make it sound huge in the mix, I used heavy stereo delays, aggressive chorus, and saturated the sound to give it oomph. There's panic in my blood, 'cause I'm trying to find a meaning when there isn't one. Another massive DIY mix hack I used was extreme high passing. In small rooms, the low-mid frequencies build up fast and can ruin your mix. I aggressively cut everything below 200 Hz on the guitars and the synths too. This can feel a bit terrifying at first because the tracks suddenly sound thin, but the moment you drop it into the full mix, they sit perfectly. In a DIY studio, you aren't trying to make every instrument sound massive. It's more like a puzzle and fitting the pieces together. And yes, there's panic in my blood. The flaws in your DIY production, the slight hiss in the background, the vocal take that's a little bit too passionate and clips the interface preamp, those are the things that give your music character and life. Now, I'm not an expert producer, I'm just a bloke on the internet who's trying to problem solve with a limited budget. If you're after that level of detail and expertise, I'd recommend somebody like Warren Hewitt to produce like a pro. Making Resistor was a massive milestone for me. It proved that you don't need a massive budget or an acoustic live room to make a record that connects with people and stands the test of time. And because the record means so much to me, and because so many people have asked for it over the years, for the very first time, Resistor is getting a proper official vinyl re-release. When we were making Resistor, we made it with vinyl release in mind. The songs segue from one track to the next to create a continuous, immersive, sonic journey. If you want to grab a copy for your own vinyl collection, and support an independent artist, head over to pauliwan.co.uk. The pre-order and purchase links are right down in the description box below. Drop a comment below. What's the biggest struggle you face in your DIY studio? Thanks for watching, go grab the vinyl, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.